All right, so the more I think about how much my new apartment's a piece of crap, with a broken washer and dryer, unreliable electricity, and the smell of something that I haven't been able to figure out. While I was thinking about those things and in the dark, because I don't want to have to go flip the breaker again for like the 10th time. And I sat here and I went and I looked in the comment section because it's only affecting part of this apartment, which is really strange. I have no idea what's triggering it. All I have connected to the power is my computer. But yeah, I was reading through the comments and someone asked me to do a video on the movie Falling Down. Falling Down was one of the first things that Mello and I talked about the first time we met because she was fascinated by that movie just as I am. It's been one of those movies that actually inspired a lot of what I did in my life. There's a very famous line from the movie in which the character says, I did everything right. I think that many people in our current society feel that way. We did everything right. What happened? Well, how did things end up like this for us? How did we go to school, try and do the best that we could, play by the rules, and still we're sitting here with nothing to show for it but a crappy car, emotionally distraught, isolated, lonely, broke, with nothing to do. And I just envisioned myself as that character many times. You're just walking down the street. And at the end, what happens? Social justice. What was meant to happen with a broken cog? The system corrects itself by taking out the anomaly. All right, let's get into our monologue for today. He didn't just wake up and decide to lose it. He was quietly unraveling for years while everyone called him dependable. Society doesn't notice the stress, the loneliness, the quiet despair. It only reacts when someone finally breaks, and even then calls them the problem. He didn't fall down, he was shoved. Slowly by a world that demands everything and gives back nothing. And when he hits the ground, the same people who ignore his pain suddenly ask, what went wrong? I think we can say that for tens of millions of Americans right now. What went wrong? The tariffs were enacted last week and the stock market crashed. It's never lost that much since it was created. And that's not a good sign for the rest of us. But what went wrong? What has years of ridiculous inflation with stagnant wages done to the average man? It's slowly shoving him down to the ground, rubbing his face in the dirt. You will not get up out of the wage cage. That's where you belong. Face covered in dirt, fleece taking you from behind, and dirty underwear. Dirty underwear is what fleece sees every morning because you can't afford to do your laundry. Or like me, you can stare at the washing machine that doesn't work. Just like you don't work in this system. Most people would like to believe that there is some hope at the end of the tunnel. This channel was created to get rid of those crazy ideas inside of your head that someday that you'd be able to get off the ground, tell fleece no more, and rise up out of the wage cage. But you know that's a lie. You and I both know you're here because you're tired of going on to CNN and having Republicans tell you that tariffs are a good thing. Because they're not. Nothing about our current system is good. You knew this was going to happen, every single person that voted for this to happen. He's told you hundreds of times he's a snake. The whole system is a snake. And when the snake finally bites you and you react to it like, well, why did this system push me down? Why didn't it let me rise up? Because people like you and me, we don't rise up. We fall down. And once we fall down, we get kicked around. And once we get kicked around, if there's any life in us left, they put us into the pine box. Well, we're not completely cold yet. All right. That was a hell of an introduction to this video. Probably one of my most bleak that I can remember in recent history. But with that said, let's get into talking point number one. Most people don't get support when they're struggling quietly. They only get noticed when they snap. Instead of addressing emotional exhaustion or economic pressure early, we wait for breakdowns, then act surprised. Why does someone have to publicly fall apart before we care? This is what we could say about every single mass casualty event in America involving a person that finally falls down. When a person has a mental breakdown in this country, they don't send doctors and nurses and psychologists to the house. You know who they send? The mercenaries. They send people to your house that are going to react to you as if you were a what's the word that I want to use here? A danger to society. And you are. Once you've broken down and you fall down, you become a dog that needs to be put down. That's why they send those people to all events. Whether you completely lost it, you're holding, I don't know what you're doing. I can't say a lot of the things that I want to say on YouTube, but you know what I'm getting at. Once you break, they send over the enforcers to take care of you. And that's a terrible thing that this country will never get rid of. Because mental health in this country will never be legitimized. Legitimized. That's a word that sounds really funny in my mouth. Because what other word can I use? Mental health in this country is demonized. If you don't show up at work every day with your Joker smile, people look at you and ask, what's wrong with that one? When you finally break and you fall down, people point at you and ask, why did that one fall down? Because it took years and years of society pushing you down for you to finally stay down. And when you finally broke and you acted crazy, society needed to repair itself. We don't need people who fall down. We need people who walk into the office every day, regardless of what they're making, and they smile while Fleece walks up to you. And you got to smile even then. He knows it's going to be the hard way. You know it's going to be the hard way for the rest of your life. But you're required to smile. And when those people finally break and they fall and they need support, we don't offer it to them. You better stay mentally healthy in public, because or else it could be you that ends like the movie ends. Talking point number two. Society rewards men, and honestly, a lot of people, for being emotionless work machines until they can't do it anymore. We confuse silence with stability, but the guy who never complains, never asks for help, and always says it's fine is often the one holding back a storm. This can be said about every worker in America. It's fine that I don't make enough money to live. It's fine that I can't afford to eat. It's fine that I can't afford to pay my rent. Or it's fine to live in a rundown shack like this place is for a large percentage of your monthly income. There are tens of millions that are home poor right now, spending over 50% of their monthly income just to live in a hole like this. This isn't fun to live here. This isn't good to live here. This is the way that you know every day that you're poor. Living here means that you're poor, and not the regular kind of poor. There's house poor, but there's apartment poor now. It used to be that you couldn't get into a house because you couldn't afford it. Now we're paying mortgage prices to live in rundown apartments in parts of town that you don't want to live in. But that's just the reality of things. It's fine. That's what you have to wake up every morning in America and tell yourself. It's fine. I live in the richest country in the world. It's fine until it's not. Talking point number 3. Companies love to exploit your work ethic, then blame you when it breaks you. You're told to take initiative until you burn out, then it's your fault for not setting boundaries. We need to stop normalizing self sacrifice for jobs that see us as disposable. I'm always going to use this example. The first time the proletariat became self aware of how disposable you were. It's the first few months of the pandemic, almost 5 years ago, and people are told to go home and work remote. The people who can't work remote are labeled essential. But the reality is, these people don't have medical insurance. They're not in great health because they don't have enough money to be able to take care of themselves. But they're the people that are going to be exposed to the worst kind of danger that we've ever seen. If you were poor, you were labeled disposable. If you had to work and you couldn't do your job, you couldn't operate your broom from your living room, then you had to know that something was wrong. Because for many years, people were convinced that, oh no, everyone has value. That wasn't so true when the people with the least voice had to be sacrificed for the greater good so that the government could continue to function, grocery stores could continue open, and those people who worked in those restaurants until they were closed had no choice. If you've worked in a restaurant your whole life and suddenly they say the place where you work at has to be closed for community uh, health reasons, and then suddenly you find yourself unable to work. What are you supposed to do when you don't know how to do anything else? You stay until they force you to leave. There are hundreds of thousands of people who had to work, who knew that their end came when they finally arrived too late, right? Because these aren't people who can take sick days. These aren't people who can say, I'm not feeling well. These aren't people who had the ability to do something else to get out of the way of becoming sacrificed. These were people that had to become aware that that society needed its essential workers. And that essential work didn't even come with essential pay. Talking point number 4. The fall isn't sudden. It's years of unpaid emotional labor, economic struggle, isolation, and pressure to hold it all together. It's a million little things society ignores. When someone finally loses it, it's not personal failure. It's a system working exactly as it was intended. This is what I see with more and more men who are choosing not to participate in this economy. If 1 in 3 men doesn't see anything in it for them, why should they participate? Why should we make fun of those men that don't want to sacrifice their lives in menial jobs so that rich people can profit solely from their labor? The people that choose not to participate, to me, are the first revolutionaries in a system that doesn't want them, that doesn't like them, and treats them as if they're invisible. They're no longer counted on statistics because they're not actively looking for work. But these are people who have chosen to say no to the machine. They will not be a cog. They will not be used for profit. They will not bear children. These are people who decided to sidestep the system and stop it from continuing to progress. I say this in all my videos because you guys keep asking the same question. Why are there always pregnant women in your videos? for one simple fact. Johnny Sixpack's child never got asked if they wanted to be a lifelong slave. I wasn't asked. If someone had asked me if I wanted to live my current life, I would have said no. Not in the slightest do I want to live the way I've had to live my whole life. Born poor, going to die poor, suffer for as many years as I get, only to end up in a shallow grave because there's no chance I'm going to be able to afford a pine box. They're just going to take me from whatever evil corp I'm at, throw me out the back door, and that's going to be the end. Where I collapse at my desk from exhaustion to having to continue to work into my 80s or 90s, just like that woman that worked at Wells Fargo, where it took 4 days for someone to finally notice that one of the workers didn't pass the sniff test. And that's where we're all heading. Most of us aren't going to pass the sniff test at the end. And that's why they're going to take us out and put us down, just like Old Yeller. Or worse, we're just going to have to work until the lights go black. And then we'll wonder what happened. Why didn't I ever get rich? Why didn't I ever get to experience any joy? Why did I spend my entire life single, depressed, and angry? And why did I finally snap? Why did I finally fall down? It was the system pushing you all along. It kept reminding you that it was pushing you down, and you just chose to ignore it. You chose to believe in the false hope, the gaslighting of America, that things will get better. This is only temporary. It can't stay like this forever. I assure you, as a person who has lived this life at the lowest of the low, that it doesn't get better. It will never change. And the simple reason for that is what Nike said this morning. Nike's told the media that it doesn't care about Trump's tariffs. Nike told the media that it just will not make clothes for the American market. It will go elsewhere. And I imagine that's what most large corporations are going to do. America wants to be a butthole in the world. We'll just go somewhere else. I imagine there'll be a day in which they have to be building fences at both borders to keep people in rather than to keep people out. And that's how I'm going to leave this video today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed the dark humor. Remember, dystopian entertainment isn't about you coming here to feel happy. It's about you coming here for a gut check, to get kicked in the nads and realize that you're the solution to this mess. Remember, if there's hope, it lies with the proletariat. Because the proletariat has the power to make all of this change in just one day. We have hundreds of millions of workers across the world who don't want to work anymore. The system has to bend. The system has to change. And that all starts with people like you watching this channel, seeing how dark things can get before you finally put your little fist in the air and say, I'm not going to put the fries in the bag, little bro. I'm done with this.